requirements of the state law, I have started the recording of the meeting. It's 1:03 on August 28th, 2020. This is a meeting of the Faculty Advisory Committee, Board of Regents for Public Higher Education in the state of Connecticut. Okay, Lois, go ahead and let's do the attendance.
All right, so I just see, hold on, I'm just trying to write this stuff down. I've got, let's do calling users 2 and 3 first.
Okay, this is Barbara Richards. I think I'm 2.
Yes.
Hi, this is Steve Marcellinus. I'm not sure which caller I am.
You're calling user 3.
Sorry?
Marcellinus is calling user 3.
So, okay, so now I've got, I'm trying to figure out who's who here. Who's guests as opposed to
There are 2
members.
guests. David Levinson is a guest, and so is Marcellinus.
Hi, Lois. Lauren Doninger, I'm a guest as well.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
wait, I'm trying to get all this down. Who, David Levinson I have. Who's Marcellinus? What's his first name?
Steve.
Steve? Could you spell your last name,
Steve
please?
Marcellinus.
Could you spell your last name?
M-A-R-C-E-L.
So, I'm sorry,
Y.
M-A-R-C?
It's actually on the agenda.
Yeah, it's in the agenda. I'll
number
forward it to you.
4. Number 4 on the agenda.
All right. I heard Lauren.
Yes, Lauren Doninger, guest.
I also see Alan Smith. Yes, no, or maybe I see an Alan Smith name on the list.
Yeah, he doesn't. That name is there, but there's no indication of their microphone being on or the video.
Well, it doesn't show that it's off, so it looks like it's on. All right, Alan Smith is not going to say anything. Angela Bautista. Well, when we get, all right, how am I supposed to do this if I'm,
Well,
no one's
Lois,
going to cooperate here?
Lois, there could be some people who are joining the meeting because it's publicly announced, who are not invited.
Understood, but don't I have to list them as guests?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay, then I won't.
Good, solves the problem. Okay.
So I think I've got everybody.
Good. All right, let me call the meeting to order. You have the agenda. The minutes of the last meeting, I think I have to make some excuses for that, in the sense that Lois came to the meeting late, and I said that I would post the video, and I think I may not have. So in that case, I'm afraid we're going to have to postpone the minutes from the special meeting we had at the beginning of the month, for which in any case, the only vote was on that resolution, which has now been submitted to you and also to the board. So with my apologies, we'll do the minutes at the next meeting, along with the minutes for this meeting, and that's my fault. Second item on the agenda is reports of the chair and vice chair. We've added this as a regular item. There are a few things that I want to say, and then I'll let Kalina say as well. Firstly, I included with today's agenda and the notice of the meeting for today, section 185 of the state of Connecticut statutes dealing with the Board of Regents, the Connecticut State Colleges and University System, and the Faculty Advisory Committee. And I think that's it's useful for 2 reasons. One, there's a section on the selection of the president of the CSCU there, to which I think we should refer later on as we discuss that in point 5. And secondly, because I plan to, at the next meeting of the Board of Regents, bring up the need to regularize the functioning and the relationship between the Faculty Advisory Committee and the Board of Regents. Let me just summarize it briefly. You may recall that there was some question at the last Board of Regents meeting about adding an agenda item. And that led me to look into section 185 and see if we are functioning at the board in accordance with the state statutes. As it turns out, both Kalina as vice chair and myself as chair of the Faculty Advisory Committee are, as you know, ex officio members of the board. We are non-voting ex officio members, and that is the one qualification which the statutes make on our participation. Consequently, we can both participate and speak at all meetings and on any agenda items, not just specifically on report from the FAC. Secondly, it seems to me that we can move and second resolutions, even if we can't vote on them, although that's perhaps a contentious point. But the third point that I want to make is that we can make a report and we can request that a report from the FAC be included at the Board of Regents for any of the meetings when we have a report to make to them. This is a point of contention because it has been brought to my attention that the understanding of the executive of the board is that we only make 2 annual or 2 semi-annual reports to the board, and that those are the only 2 occasions when we can specifically address the board. I think that's a mistake, and there seems to be some confusion with a provision in section 185 for 2 joint sessions of the Board of Regents and the Faculty Advisory Committee. Those of you who have been on the FAC longer than me may remember back to a point when apparently that did happen. And there is a specification in the statutes that the chair of the Board of Regents and the chair of the FAC jointly work out the agenda. The meeting is chaired by the chair of the Board of Regents. That seems to have dropped and somehow morphed into 2 semi-annual reports. That's not a literal reading of the statutes, and I plan to bring this to the attention of the board at the next meeting so that we can, on a as needed basis, have a report from the FAC, and that might be at each meeting of the board, as the case may be. And secondly, that we need to look into organizing these 2 joint sessions as required by the statutes.
Hey, David, can I just speak to that for 1 second, Mike Shea? I think you're right, I think, about everything you said. And the reason I think there was the misunderstanding about the 2 reports is because that was a minimum requirement. In other words, that was there to make sure that at least those reports happened. They weren't there to make to be the only thing that the FAC does and the FAC members that are on the board are supposed to do. So I just want to, and also I've been on it for a long time, and I do remember when we met as a group. So I'm not sure if we did. I might remember, but I just want to say that they're kind of taking the minimum requirement and making it the maximum requirement that the report be twice, and that's it for you all. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Good. So we'll clarify that at the next meeting of board, and I'll ask for an agenda item, which will be a report from the FAC. Other items that I want to draw to your attention. At the last special meeting that we had, there was a resolution that we passed on additional safety measures and health measures for the reopening of campuses. I submitted that to Chairman Matt Fleury. He forwarded that to the Executive Director of the board, Erin Fitzgerald, and she circulated that to all members of the board. I did not receive any response from any members of the board to our resolution. However, it was circulated to them. Thirdly, I've received the resignation of a member of the Faculty Advisory Committee, in fact, a longstanding member, namely William Lugo. And let me just read what he sent. It says, "It is with a heavy heart that I must announce my resignation, effective immediately from the FAC. I have served on the FAC for over 6 years and enjoyed every minute of it. Unfortunately, with my new role in the CSCU Criminology Task Force, I cannot fulfill my duties on the FAC to the degree that is needed. Thankfully, we could not ask for a better replacement than David Stoloff. He has served in almost every position we have at our institution and is extremely knowledgeable of the challenges facing our system. I will also notify our Senate President of my intentions, and hopefully an election can be held soon. Please let me know if there's anything else I can do. Take care, and thank you both, addressed to Helena and myself, for all that you have done and continue to do for our system. So David Stoloff will be replacing, and there he is. Well, I served on committees with him going back to 2005 at the old CSU board. That said, there is, something which I did indicate to him. This CSCU Criminology Task Force caused some controversy at CCSU, which has the largest and longest standing criminal justice / criminology program. I spoke with Jennifer Hudland, the chair of the department, who was quite concerned that they had not been consulted in setting up this system-wide task force. And I communicated that to William Lugo, indicating that the CCSU department was considered it very important that there be one of their members on this task force. And he said that he would get back to Jennifer Hudland in the weeks to come. So that is the third item that I had. In fact, for the moment, that's all. Helena?
David, can I interrupt really quick?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm at Northwestern Criminal Justice Program Coordinator, and we get together with all of our CJ coordinators. And yeah, there was a little bit, I don't want to say upset, but they were concerned that no one was contacted on our part too, because we can contribute to this. And so I think Jennifer's concerns are shared with us. I just wanted to kind of bring that forward, and that's it.
Yeah, I think if I might just add, there is an issue that when the CSU's, the system office, as it were, sets up these system-wide committees, they need to take care to make sure that they have representatives from all of the various constituencies and all of those people who are affected. I served, and for that matter, I see David Levinson is here now. You will recall that we both served on a working group for online programs. And one of the objections which I had to the group, one of the problems that I identified, was that, for example, only 2 of 4 universities were there. And of the 20 or so members of the committee, I was the only university faculty member present. None of the people from our online programs had been consulted. And that makes for a considerable problem, and I think very significantly limits the results that could be obtained. And so I'll circulate at a later date the document I prepared with my concerns about that kind of a situation, and in particular this particular committee. But that's for another time. But I understand that's Mike's point of view, that also concerns his community college as well. Kalina, did you have anything that you wanted to report?
Not right now. I think we could leave it at that for now, so that we can have time. I know that David Levinson has to leave us at 2, so we can move on.
Let us move on then directly. So David Levinson, who is the newly appointed interim president of the Connecticut State Community College, which is to be created, as I understand it, in 2023, has asked to discuss with us the issues that we have. I know that a number of you submitted questions, and I've circulated those, sadly a little bit at the last minute, but you had them before you. But perhaps, David, you could begin and say what you have to say.
Sure. Thank you, David. And thank you for inviting me to the meeting this afternoon. I did receive your questions, and there are a lot of them, understandably. And what I want to propose and is we think of this as really an initial conversation. I'm very happy to appear before the committee however often you would like me to, and also to work with whomever so that we can discuss, the questions, the concerns, and, where we're moving forward. Just a little bit about me, my own background, I'm a sociologist by training. I've been a sociology professor, still view myself as faculty, even though I've been on the dark side for a number of years. And, most recently I've been very involved with the American Sociology Association on a task force looking at community college faculty and arguing for the importance of our community college faculty within an association that's dominated by R1 universities. And again, come to this work is a way that I still do sociology. I feel that faculty play not only an essential but a critical role in what we're doing at the universities. And, I thought I would just discuss some of the thinking, at least on my thinking about what we're doing with respect to Connecticut State Community College, and then to, begin addressing questions. I've been in Connecticut now this is my 16th year. For 15 years, I was president of Norwalk Community College, then had a presidential fellowship and became the interim president of Connecticut State Community College middle of May. And, when the consolidation was first proposed, I and certainly others had concerns and still have concerns. And what I mean by that is I've always valued the importance of local campuses, of my faculty and staff. I think as Lois can attest, we've always had a very good spirited debate within Newark Community College. And I would say, like a number of my colleagues, did not want to see that taken away. So when I was asked to do this interim job, I have to say I did a lot of soul searching. One is that, I feel really important that we have an obscene amount of racial and gender and social inequality in Connecticut. And, that's something that has to be addressed. I feel that what we're currently doing as a state, as a structure, is not working in terms of generating the kind of student success that I think we all would like. And, be quite honest, they offered me a nice salary, right? So I agreed to do this for 2 years, from the middle of May of this year till May 15th, 2022. And when I came aboard, there had been some of the work done before in terms of the organization charts. And one of the things that I voiced in the outset and will continue to advocate for is the importance of local campuses. If there's one domain in our charts that is not or are not developed, is what happens at the campus level. And that's critically important because that's where the rubber meets the road, where you meet with our students. And I've been spending as much time as possible, working on that and strengthening that. I've also very mindful, and I think everyone probably has seen now the letter that NECI sent back to us, the August 6th letter. And, if I were to extrapolate, some of what they said was, first of all, what is the role of faculty with respect to issues of curriculum? How does faculty play a critical or central role in what we're doing in this new institution? And I had a discussion with NECI yesterday. I got to meet the new president, Larry Shaw, and, Larry affirmed, the concerns that were raised in the letter that came from the commission before he was there. So what I'm trying to do, with respect to this is to try to steer Connecticut State Community College in a way that truly, and I do mean this from the bottom of my heart, represents the wishes of faculty and staff, that again promotes student success, which is something we're all concerned with, that equalizes out the inequities and resources that exist in the state, and really has, to me, a very important social justice mission. And I'm very aware, of course, of all the controversies that have ensued the last couple of years. And what I ask for you, and I appreciate the questions, is your engagement. I would love to, I want you to be engaged. I want the faculty advisory committee to be engaged. I want people to, feel and be respected for their voices. What has been designed, the org chart is a draft. That was something that I made really clear when I came aboard in the middle of May. This is not etched in stone. There's a lot of work to be done. And, the most important thing in my mind is to do something where we all have, of course, a stake in that we address, some of these incredible realities with respect to the pandemic, et cetera, but also at the same time mindful that, our students, especially Black and Brown students, are not succeeding the way they should, neither, I would say, even our white students, but also that, we're in a time where, resources are tight. I mean, right now the enrollments in the community colleges are down about 12.5% as of today. There are clearly going to be some real major financial repercussions from that. And I just think it's really important that we work together. And I can't undo what has been done in the past, but I'm willing to take full responsibility of what's being done now. And so I just wanted to offer those as kind of introductory comments. And David and Colleen, I don't know how you want to proceed with the rest of the meeting.
Well, there were 4 members of the FAC who posed written questions. So why don't we go to each one of those 4 to start off with and have them ask you one of their questions?
Sure.
So, and then we'll open it to the whole committee. So Barbara Richards, Ron Picard, Francis Cohn, and Lois M.A. were the 4. So let's begin with Barbara Richards.
Could you begin with someone else and then I'll go after?
Yes.
Because I need to take a look at the questions again.
Ron Picard.
Sure, David. I'm actually going to ask a different question than the questions that I submitted, mainly because a news account just came out today stating that the state of Connecticut is over its legal requirement for the rainy day fund of, I think we have $3.1 billion in savings. That seems to me to have come at the expense of the higher education system. We've been cut and cut and cut. When I first started at Naugatuck Valley Community College 16 years ago, the state picked up 60% of the tab. Now we pick up 60% of the tab. Our students, the tuition our students pay. It seems to me that much of the money that went into that rainy day fund came out of us. Meanwhile, we were told that the consolidation was because the system was failing financially. Obviously, it has the resources and had the resources, and it seems as though, I don't know, how do we justify consolidation on a financial basis when we have the state putting $3.1 billion into a rainy day fund, which is a violation of the law, which is too much for them to even have?
I think that's a very good question. I've experienced the same thing since being in Connecticut in terms of the cuts that, we suffered at NCC. One of the things that we did, at least financially, is to have the PAC program, which did provide, quote, free community college to all. But, I can't justify, quite honestly, what the state of Connecticut does. I don't understand why there isn't a greater investment in public education. I myself have gone to SUNY New Paltz undergraduate, UMass Amherst for my graduate work. I just can't, I can't excuse that. And I did see the same issue about, the state's financial predicament. The question I would have is, so what's the plan, in the sense that, are we going to now declare financial insolvency and starting reducing workforces, which is the last thing I want to do. So I don't know, I don't have, my relationships really are strongest with local legislators in Fairfield County and a little bit beyond. And I know they have, have been supportive, at least of the things I want to do in higher ed. but I really don't. I can't. I can't justify. I really don't know. And I'll be quite honest. Why there isn't more of an investment. I feel very strongly that if we don't invest in our colleges and our community colleges, Connecticut's economic recovery, whatever you want to call it, is going to stall. And for me, the real problem in Connecticut is, it's the social inequality, which is just going to be exacerbated. It is by COVID and the lack of extension of the, unemployment benefits. And, I have great fears of what's going to happen. And with our students, again, I don't mean to, drone on here, but, we try to figure out, well, why do we have such an enrollment decline in the community colleges? My hypothesis would be, our students are struggling. I'm sure many have lost the jobs they had. Many are supporting families. People are facing evictions. And even though we'll argue that their best interest is to go and be in school, I don't know how they have the psychic energy to do that or financial wherewithal, even if we're paying their tuition. So if I can call you Ron, I feel I share your concerns, and I just, for the life of me, been very concerned about, of course, the country at large, but also the state. Because I think we all kind of knew we were going to be in this situation, and unfortunately, it shouldn't be a surprise. But little I saw this morning, it was news. And again, I can sociologically try to explain it about the inequality of wealth and the different interests, and why is the stock market doing so well when people are suffering economically. But I don't honestly get it.
But I guess my point, David, is that rather than push for consolidation on a financial basis, why wouldn't we have simply said, if the colleges are struggling and the state has the resources, why wouldn't we advocate for more resources to keep the colleges solvent rather than going through what looks like a very expensive consolidation process?
I hear you. I honestly don't know why. Again, my understanding of the consolidation, wasn't just the money aspect, but again, trying to improve, student success. And, whether or not we need to do a consolidation for that's something that's fair game to be discussed. I think the colleges, from my vantage point, have always been under-resourced. When I came here in 2004, I was at Bergen Community College in Paramus. And, coming to North Community College financially was coming to a place that was unbelievable to me, not having basic resources, not having a health office, not having so much is missing even during the quote good times. So I've always felt, honestly, that Connecticut, at least certainly in community colleges, which I can speak of, has always underinvested. And unfortunately, we're suffering now. But again, I can't answer why that wasn't pursued. I really don't know.
Okay. Let's go on.
Yeah, I'm ready, David, if you are.
Yeah.
This is Barbara. I'm ready.
Hi.
Barbara, go ahead.
Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I think one of the most important questions is that I'm very glad that you'd like to work with the Faculty Advisory Committee and build bridges with us. And I think that's important, but the FAC is not a community college shared governance body. It's a system-wide body with a different function. And the group of faculty, you probably know, group of faculty members from the community college who were working on the question of shared governance for the new entity were told that they were not allowed to discuss anything before 2023, which would mean that there is no mechanism for shared governance such as a system-wide Senate that would function before 2023, which means the whole thing gets designed top to bottom without any formal faculty way to have input from the faculty on the campuses. And I think that is one reason that we've been so frustrated that it seems that every committee that gets set up is, I've heard people on my campus who go to one of the committees that the system is supposed to be involving faculty in, and a guy in our art department said he arrived the first day and there were all these things on the board, and he said, wait, I thought we were going to design these things. And the person chairing the meeting said, well, sure you are, but this is what we want to do, what's on the board. And there's a sense that nobody can change anything that's coming straight top down from some system staff, and the ones that they've borrowed from the community college as part of that. And I was just reading the other day that the SUNY in New York, their statewide Senate just voted no confidence in the process of a new chancellor being selected. But they have a statewide Senate. We in the community college, we're supposed to be one college with no Senate. And under that, no curriculum committee. We don't have people that we elected who speak for us in the process of designing this community college. So I wanted to ask you if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, a number of things. I mean, you know, the issue of internal governance to me is really important. One of the things that I'm most proud of when I was at NCC is we really did not have a representative governance structure, and I was delighted to be part of creating something which, you know, I think has been very effective. You know, so I know there's been groups meeting about, bless you, groups meeting about internal governance. I don't know honestly where they're at. Barbara, I feel that it's important that faculty have a voice in this, and you know, I'm a little unclear as to why there couldn't be a discussion about this and what are we trying to do before 2023, because of course, you know,
well, I think maybe either Lois or Colina or somebody could tell you what happened, but the faculty group that was making proposals about this was replaced with a system-dominated committee instead. I believe that's the history. Can somebody on FAC explain that better?
This is Lois. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. The Shared Governance Committee had put forward some items that the people from System Office felt were controversial and didn't want to pursue or didn't want to be part of that committee. So the committee was sent a letter by Provost Gates saying that if we didn't want to be part of the committee, we could quit. And because they weren't going to expand any or change our what we were supposed to be doing as far as they were concerned. So for all intents and purposes, that committee has been disbanded, or actually it's there, but the vast majority of people still on that committee are System Office people.
And I guess I'll add that the requests that were made in the document that led to it being suggested that we just resign were simply that there needs to be a governance process in place, that there must be a curriculum committee for the building of the catalog for the new college, because even though we were on the shared governance committee, we were told that no shared governance, the Senate and the curriculum committee in particular will not be put in place until 2023 when the college opens, which just even logistically is odd because we want to make sure that it functions smoothly before we start this giant institution running, right? The other request that was made was that the quality of the curriculum be prioritized over haste. And that led to our being invited to resign. And so I would also say, though, that so I'm confused about process because the Shared Governance Committee was a work group of the SFASACC. Right. The CCIC, which I believe you chaired at the time, oversaw the SFASACC. So was that communication not flowing between these groups? Because I would have thought that you'd be aware of that.
I mean, I did see Provost Gates' communication, but it honestly did not come from the CCIC. And I would say as much as, you know, I wasn't interim president then, but as interim president now, I want to look at that. I want to convene a group and talk about governance because I think that's critical. And, you know, even on an instrumental level, that's one of the things that NETCHI has been saying to us is we need an effective governance system. I mean, that is loud and clear, you know, in the last letter. So what I'd like to do, you know, is to, well, first to see where this committee is at, but restructure it. And I don't see why we should not have discussions. You know, I mean, it doesn't make any sense if we're creating a curriculum which is aligned, and let us say it's aligned by learning outcomes. How can't we have the voice of faculty involved in that and faculty governance in general? So I would like to, I don't know the words restore, but to reconstitute a group, you know, that is meaningful, that would be collaborative, and that would have input in that. That would be my as interim. That's what I want to do. I can't speak for what happened before, you know, except I was tangentially involved in that. But I'd like to reconstitute that and have a meaningful discussion about shared governance. You know, and have faculty involved. I mean, or at Norwalk, we create a governance structure. You know, we have, you know, caucus. It's a college-wide governance structure, which I think has always been a really neat thing. But I would love to work with people and make that meaningful. I don't see how you can't. I guess for me, and my understanding of accreditation, how can you have a college without governance, and how can you have an institution without internal governance structures operating effectively?
If I could add also, this is Paul Breach from Capital, and I appreciate the fact that you're trying to get faculty involved and you know the history of frustrations, and much of this is anecdotal, and you just said it happened before you, but it's important because it's part of the history of why we're where we are. But to just give you an example, I've been elected as the chair of the College Senate at Capitol many times over the years. I currently am. I'm a NETCHI accreditation site visitor, and I have reviewed other colleges for Standard 3 of governance. And so I was on the statewide governance committee, and I can honestly say, and interestingly enough, I just looked at the calendar on the bottom of my computer. Today is my 28-year anniversary of being at Capital Community College. So I can honestly say that after having attended the statewide governance committee, I have never been treated with such disrespect in any other meeting, both internal and external, within the system as I was at the statewide governance committee. I made a few proposals. I was told by one person at the system office on 2 occasions at that meeting that I wasn't telling the truth. In essence, she called me a liar. Later on, she backpedaled that when she realized she was wrong. But again, this is before you were there, and I appreciate the fact that you want to get faculty involved. But these are issues that really happened. And these are issues that bring us to the point that we are today with people like me and so many other that are now under your authority and under your supervision that have been treated like this by the BOR and by the system office. And I think, you know, you talked about the org chart. I think the org chart is the perfect example of, again, another reason why there's a lot of frustration in the system. And I appreciate, again, the fact that you said you want to relook at that and give more authority to the community colleges internally. But as you know, with that original org chart, there was very little, if any, authority that was given to the individual college, with the exception of the very bottom of the left of page 15, where the dean, you know, had a little bit of say. So I thank you that you're willing to relook at that. And although I'm an accreditation site visitor with NETCHI, I'm disappointed in the fact that they essentially just dismissed all of the concerns that were presented by so many people in this system. Those concerns are valid, and I'm sure you've heard them many, many times since you've taken your position. And I hope you'll at least act on those. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm sorry what you've gone through. I mean, that's not acceptable. So my apologies for that. But I, very much want a strong faculty voice in whatever it is that we do. And, again, I am aware of the history and, and the reasons that people have withdrawn from the process.
May I press just a little further, David? Sure. Just for the sake of clarity.
Sure.
So this shared governance work group, what was it? Request was made in fall of 2019. And in fall of 2018, SFASCC appealed to the CCIC for an expansion of their charge precisely because there was no room for governance. And that request was denied by the CCIC, which I believe you were the head of at the time. So you're describing a very different approach currently, a very different attitude towards that currently. Is the difference that you now have sort of expanded authority to do this, or is it because you've seen how it's turned? Like, how can we expect a significant difference in not just sentiment but action for this?
Yeah, no, I understand that how do I say? I don't know, sleep at the switch or whatever. I forget the actual vote that occurred at the CCIC, but no, I understand that. Yes, I mean, I will argue for the role of faculty. Again, I will take action. I mean, I'm the interim president of this entity, wherever it is, and would want to involve the faculty. And again, this is to me coming loud and clear from NETCHI. So there's a number of reasons for that, other than just, of course, being an acceptable practice in higher ed. And I realize that with shared governance, it's not that we're always going to agree. And I guess technically, governance is advisory, but, then again, we're all advisors to the board. So I think, it's fair game to have, a shared voice and to, articulate that. So that is something I feel very strongly that needs to be changed.
Hi, David. David, this is Barbara. You want to go or you want me to go?
No, let me just go, and then you, okay?
Okay, absolutely.
I just wanted to suggest that that if you'd be willing, David, to look into this some and come back next month for a specific discussion on how we might move forward on shared governance before 2023, that would be, I think, very useful, because it sounds like maybe there is a possibility we could figure something out together.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. If not even before. Again, I'm very mindful, of everyone's workload. I mean, I'm a full-time administrator, and everyone here has got substantial teaching responsibilities that I can only imagine how difficult they are going through the pandemic. But I'm happy to convene and talk beforehand, but certainly would be very happy to come back to the next meeting and do my homework prior to that.
Okay,
thank you.
David, this is Ron. I really like what you're saying. I think you want to work with us. I think that's great. The problem is just last week our associate dean sent us an email saying that they had gotten a statement from the system office that they were to share with us, stating that alignment would be completed by the end of this semester, regardless of who was working with them. They had 200 people working on them, and I think we have about 180 programs, so that averages out to a little over one person per committee. And that this was going to happen by December, regardless of anything. And so the plans that you have of getting faculty back involved, getting these committees, that's certainly going to take some time to put into place. Meanwhile, we're being told that alignment is being done essentially without faculty. And so are you willing to put that process on hold in order to get the structures in place that would allow faculty to have input? Or is that email that we got from our associate dean last week correct, that this is going to happen regardless of what faculty involvement?
Well, I think the issue, my understanding with, I mean, there are a lot of issues with alignment, of course, and I'm cognizant of the fact that the distribution of people on alignment committees, over the summer. But it was my understanding that anything that occurs has to go back to the faculty at the campuses for approval. And so, in other words, that even if there were not, every faculty member were not full-time, as many full-time as we would have liked in those groups, that the faculty at each campus has got to weigh in on what is being recommended. And I'll be quite honest, I don't think that can all be completed by December. And I'd have to look at where that came from, because the one thing I'm trying to do, and I understand the inflation is we're not the quote system office. Now I know that might sound a little bit bizarre, but system office is a separate entity. We are this fledgling institution. And one of the important parts of all this, and especially coming in from NECHI, is the relevant autonomy we need to have from a system office. I mean, we are college, and we could debate whether or not we should be doing this to begin with, but we're a college, and so we need to do that. So Ron, I'll look into that, but everything has got to be approved by the faculty, and again, we just. If we're trying to have a homogenized curriculum, we could engage with Cengage or some other, provider like that, and that's not something that I want to see happen.
And I think, David, as you've seen with all the votes that faculty senates have put forward, rejecting many of the processes that have gone by so far, you can expect that should those programs come to us in December, that they will be rejected out of hand because of the process. And so I think a lot of work may be being done right now for no reason, because the process itself will call into question what's produced, and therefore will be rejected at the campuses due to the process that's being followed. I think the process needs to be fixed first, and then the product will take care of itself. But right now the process is very broken.
May I also jump in and just ask to clarify, as you said that faculty have to approve at the various campuses, but I think we were both at the same ASA meeting where we were informed that basically it has to be presented as an information item to faculty bodies at the colleges. There is no need for approval or even participation from faculty bodies, according to what was, I believe it was Ken Klusnick, informed us was what was being regarded as the so-called TAP model for our curriculum thus far, and nothing has replaced it. Is that correct?
But it wasn't, one question, wasn't the TAP model, wasn't that, unless I'm wrong, faculty had a voice in that, right? I mean, that was something that was faculty generated.
Should they choose to provide comments, they would be taken into consideration. But there was no sort of commitment to gaining the approval of these bodies, or even in making sure that they participate. So I feel like that process was slightly different in the sense that if people didn't participate, it really didn't matter.
And this came, I'm sorry, what ASA committee meeting was this?
I think it was either May 1st or June 5th. I think it was May 1st. And Ken Klusnick said that there was no threshold of participation or of approval that was necessary for curricular content to move forward. That was his understanding of the process.
And the student success course was a good example. I mean, that was rejected completely by the faculty, by the colleges, and yet it was approved by the BOR over the objection of the faculty.
Yeah, and specifically bypassed the group that had been formed to work on it, the faculty group that had been formed to work on it. When they excluded it, they just went straight to the Board of Regents. So, okay, sorry. I know that we wanted to get the 4 people and we didn't get to Lois yet.
Francis is, I think, next.
Okay.
He's waiting patiently. So let's go to Francis Cole.
I'll be quick. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Could you explain the rationale for the proposed elimination of department chairs?
I inquired about that, why that was done. This is the response I got was the idea that, that there would be department, my understanding, and again, that there would be department chairs, at the quote state level, or there would be department chairs as part of Connecticut State Community College. There'd be discipline heads at the campuses. And so what I've been told is that if you envision our academic organization statewide, you would then have, statewide chairs, which would be differentiated from, discipline heads at the colleges. So my understanding of that, was explained to me, was the idea of making a distinction between what's going to happen at the statewide level and what will happen at the local level. And that was the reason for the change in language to department heads.
Okay, but in point of fact, there aren't any statewide department chairs. There aren't any department chairs whatsoever. There are discipline leads, I think,
discipline leads, yeah,
who are really stripped of all authority and to do anything except hire and evaluate adjuncts, so far as I know. And the chairs are being replaced by associate deans at the college level. People we don't know, we won't know, we won't even see on a daily basis. So this is a massive change, and I still don't understand the rationale behind it.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm conveying is what was explained to me earlier today, but I need to look into that much more. So I appreciate you bringing that up to me.
Thank you.
Sorry, I can't give you a better answer right now.
No, it's an honest answer.
Lois, I think you're next.
Yeah, okay. How specifically would the creation of a single community college improve equity and student success issues for students attending community colleges in the state of Connecticut?
Okay. The parts of the institution that's being proposed, that I think is useful, has to do with guided pathways, has to do with holistic case managers being involved, so that the idea, at least the hope, is that there would be, one advisor per 250 students, where now the ratio is like 1 to 780 or something like that. So that is, one of the ideas. Second idea, that there would be a greater sharing of resources. I mean, my hope would be, even the colleges will maintain their local foundations, but the inequities would be balanced off in terms of the different campuses. So my hope would be, that everyone is on a level playing field and has those resources that are available. And I think now there's inequities. Some of the inequities honestly have to do with the areas in which we live, or the NCC Foundation raising X number of dollars where, other foundations cannot. But what I would hope there would be an equalization in terms of resources. Not that private foundations are going to raise money if the other colleges, but I think there should be some compensation for that. So what I want to see is every student having the same resource available.
I would doubt that the Norwalk Community College Foundation is going to be willing to give money to other colleges outside of this area.
Well, no, Los, I agree with that. They won't want to do that. But then again, I think it's incumbent upon the state or Connecticut State Community College to balance off. I mean, why, if you're going to really create a statewide organization that's going to address the inequities, then, you can't have the same going on where one college like NCC has, X number of dollars available for scholarships and enhancements, and the other colleges don't. I think there needs to be an equalization of resources. But I agree, the NCC Foundation will not raise money for other institutions, as I've been reminded.
But neither guided pathways nor that kind of funding relies on the fact that there's a single community college. That could continue to happen with independently accredited community colleges.
Yes, if the resources were there.
So I guess what I'm asking is not being answered.
Oh, how so?
Well, I just asked you, how would a creation of a single community college make equity and student success issues better than they are now?
Well, honestly, the practices such as, guided pathways, the holistic case managers. I guess the idea was that if it was done statewide, there would be equal footing in terms of that.
That could be done at independently accredited colleges as well.
Yeah, no, I agree if the resources were there. And I think the problem is the resources are not there for each of the colleges. Or to give you an example, okay, about admissions, right? At the present time, there's, I understand, well over 2,000 students who have applied for admission into the community colleges but have not registered yet. And I believe that's being hampered, quite honestly, by not having the tools to do quote enrollment management the way in which we need to do given the numbers of people that are out. So it's not a fault issue of any one campus, but again, it's trying to implement processes that would be more effective. And again, you're right, the technologies, all this stuff could be done at the local level if there were resources. The argument would be the efficiencies at scale if some of these things are done statewide. The same thing about doing the back office processing of financial aid, or applying for admission, having one admissions application for 12 colleges, and therefore students would not have to transfer credits from one to the other if they want to take courses at a multitude of colleges. So the argument, is one of putting things to scale and how that would save resources.
Yeah, we've been asking for one single application for 12 colleges now for the last 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever years, and it's not being done. It seems like a simple thing to do. Why isn't it being done?
I'm not sure, in terms of looking at 12 accreditations, honestly, I'm not certain if it could be done. I mean, that could make an argument, again, that you're overriding the individual accredited institutions. I don't know. I'm just phrasing that as a...
Since the community college is open enrollment, I don't understand why that would be a problem.
Well, I think it would depend on, what the accreditor is. And I agree. I mean, look, these things can be done, and they could be done in a variety of ways. I understand that. But again, the idea behind some of the, for lack of a better word, back office things was, the efficiencies of scale.
Well, I can tell you right off the bat that the consolidation of HR and IT have done exactly the opposite for community colleges.
We've come to 2:00. Is it my understanding that David Levinson has to leave at 2?
I can do another 15 minutes. I want to, I think it's important to have more. I'm sorry, I can't stay beyond that. I have another meeting right afterwards.
That's fine. I just wanted to check with you.
Sure.
So let's open the floor to further questions.
This is Jennifer Long from Three Rivers. May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
David, thank you for joining us today. I worked with you a long time ago when we moved to PA 1240 and had
yes. Okay. Yeah.
Issues. And one of the things that always strikes me is when folks talk about how underprepared and poor performing the students are. I teach developmental English, and I see tremendous success in the classroom. It doesn't always translate to higher graduation rates or even a student going through the course. But if you take the level in which the students are entering and see the tremendous successes we get, even while so under supported, it's actually outstanding in my mind. And I feel like that process is never really looked at. I feel like the Band-Aid for PA 1240 was to say, well, we're going to give each college $600,000 and we'll have embedded tutoring. And as a result of that, what ended up happening was many academic deans took that money and they balanced their budgets with it, and it didn't stay within the classroom. We also have situations where we have fairly large full-time enrollment and one librarian, or we can't get the hours we need for tutoring. So I think I would just love to hear the conversation shift a little so that we can be mindful of the fact that the high schools didn't meet us during the PA 1240 initiative to what they argued that they would do to bridge the gap, that the teachers are doing amazing work in the classroom, and it's really a resource issue. And if the PA 1240 money was funded and used properly, that would have been more of a success, not to even mention all the gray areas about lack of resources across from the college. So I think that there are tremendous successes happening, but again, it's how we're defining success. So if I can get a student to move from 7th grade reading comprehension to 12th after 2 semesters, that's a success. So I just wish that we could shift that narrative a bit, because tremendous successes are happening in the classroom. And I don't think that the guided pathways where students are kind of pigeonholed into a system is necessarily the answer. And what I really want to underscore is that if we can just maybe let the faculty have some input into some of this decision making, that could help, because I would definitely invite you to come pop into my online class anytime and take a look at it and see the work that we're actually doing in there, because it's, I don't mean to shoot my own horn, but I think it's pretty tremendous. So thank you. That's really a comment more than a question. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that, Jennifer. And I understand what you're saying. I mean, again, the successes that we have are, first of all, relative, and, success need not always be measured by standard metrics. I mean, the struggle I have, honestly, like I'm trying to work with the governor's office on, there's a whole, to make a long story short, there's a reskilling and a reemployment network that the American Association of Community Colleges has formed with the National Governors Association. And so Connecticut is one of 21 states involved in this network. And what it involved for me was, of course, reaching out to the governor's office and getting a sense of their engagement, and they were fine with it. And the first thing I got from the governor's office, from an individual in the office, was, okay, we need clear metrics. Now, metrics are all fine and dandy. And, again, I just, refer to graduation rates, success rates, what have you. But when you focus just on certain outcome metrics, as you, I think, pointed out in a very elegant way, you miss a lot of what is going on qualitatively. And so part of the struggle that I find myself in, just an example, it's just one example of everyone wants to see the metrics, the legislature, the governor's office, what have you. And the problem we run into is we don't have them to show. Then it becomes problematic from a funding perspective. And again, I say this, empathizing, Jennifer, with what you said, because I think that is really important. And I'm as guilty as anyone else from overlooking that at times, but I keep on getting bombarded with that. So I think, honestly, with faculty, we could figure a way of doing that, right? Because it need not just be quantitative, it could be qualitative. It could be capturing more the narratives of the students and presenting that in a codified way that could help make our case. But I appreciate what you said, Jennifer. I think people doing great work. And again, we have such inequities in the high schools. We have students with incredibly complex lives. And we, have never, at least in my time in Connecticut, had the resources to deal with this. And yet we are one of the wealthiest states in the nation.
Thank you. I just wanted to also add that I did meet with Senator Bai, and I asked her about, she didn't intend for PA 1240 to pass as quickly as it did. And she was very disappointed to hear that the funding wasn't being used properly. And the fear, I think, is that with guided pathways and other initiatives, that there has to be some tracking and accountability for deans and presidents to make sure that the money is being spent the way it was earmarked. But, and then the faculty end up bearing the brunt of that lack of proper funding. So I appreciate what you said, and thank you for listening to me.
No, and I know Senator Bai felt that way because, we've had some conversations too, and I guess the old adage, be fearful of what you wish for. And, PA 1240 has had some, I think, positive things, but I know it was kind of put out there more as a wake-up call, not necessarily with the intent of being fully legislated, given the pace in which that occurred. But thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? I think we've had a pretty substantial first round. David Levinson.
If I could just interrupt, this is Brian Kaufman from QVCC, and David, I appreciate your being here. I appreciate everybody being here. The only thing we haven't heard a lot of things, but we haven't actually heard a vision, and so I didn't know if you had a vision of where we are headed. If you might want to comment on something like that.
No, I'd be happy to. And again, the vision, what I look at, and again, I'm fully cognizant of the issues that have arisen over, the creation of or the proposal of this college. But the vision for me and the values we have are really of social equity and social justice. And the vision I have is that, if we're going to create something new and we are wanting to be successful, however we define that we need to take on, the social inequities, the racial injustice that exists in Connecticut and of course nationwide. And I guess for me, what the vision is that if we could create an entity, and again, we need to talk a lot about what that would look like, that would somehow be able to equalize the resources in Connecticut and make that a priority, not of the government, but also philanthropy, for better, for worse. We have to be, we are dependent in part on philanthropy, and there's all different types of philanthropy. But, to me, the vision is we create an institution whose guiding purpose is to, totally reverse what goes on in the state of Connecticut and by definition, the nation. So, my vision is that, and to create a place where there is collaboration, where people can meet with peers in related disciplines and departments, which, given the size of some of our colleges, it's hard to do at the present time, but to really have those disciplinary groups and to really encourage, professional development, and not just, professional development in terms of the most recent pedagogical techniques, which is fine and dandy, but the professional development within the discipline and areas of interest. I mean, again, the work I've done with the American Sociology Association has been designed to promote community college sociologists. And, like in a lot of areas in the community college, not everyone has been trained in the fields in which they are teaching. Where I remember when I first became a faculty member at Mass Bay Community College in like 92, they said, "Oh, you're a sociologist. Why don't you teach a section of psychology too?" Which I did, and I stayed one chapter ahead at best of the students. Right? So my vision is that we create an institution that values the expertise of faculty, that nurtures that, provides opportunities for academic, scholarly, and professional growth, and is embedded, as we are within communities, to really try to make some transformational change. I mean, the euphemism of what's often referred to as wraparound services, I think is quite important. And of course, the colleges themselves can't provide all the community-based resources that are necessary. But, one of the things that I tried to do at NCC was to strengthen those local connections. And I know it might sound counterintuitive, but one of the things that I think is really important with Connecticut State Community Colleges to do the same. And I agree that page 15 or whatever that was of the org chart that looked at the local campus was totally undeveloped and did not specify a role. And, again, I really feel there's got to be overall much more grassroots engagement in this. And again, a commitment. And I appreciate the discussion earlier, when we talked about, what's going on at the state level, or Ron, you raised that, why isn't there more of an investment? And I think those are important questions. And if we don't do something now, when are we going to do it? So that's kind of my vision, so to speak. Sorry for not being articulate to talk further.
This is Barbara. It's not a completely different topic, but it's kind of urgent, I think. And I don't know how much you can control anything about it, but you might at least be able to advocate for it.
Sure.
I'm concerned that there was an incident at Gateway of COVID contamination, and I happen to know someone who knows what it was, but that it was not publicly announced. It was only announced that the college was closing for 2 days for disinfecting. I'm wondering if there's going to be, the system office has had a tendency in all areas to be secretive. And I wondered if there's going to be any transparency about what's actually happening with cases of COVID on our campuses, about the numbers. Is there going to be a dashboard? Is there going to be a way that we can check and see how it's going? Is the public going to have any idea, or is everything going to be a secret?
No, Barbara, that's really, it needs to be public. And I think the issue that I know the legislators had raised concern after the hearing that was, I believe, last week or the week before last, and I saw the letter from the legislators only yesterday. I saw it on I stumbled on it at Connecticut News. So I had not seen, before what they submitted. And then I saw the response, but, I think we need to be transparent about those issues. And it's, I don't want to use the word terrifying, but it is a major concern because we are dealing with a virus that is still very much with us. And as we open up institutions, I know everyone, my colleagues, CEOs and presidents spent a lot of time over the summer trying to figure out how do they do this. And everyone tried to do something a little different, to have some in-class meetings for students in areas that were critical. But, of course, look what is happening. Look what's happening in the nation, right? And so, Barbara, I agree. That should be transparent. And I will bring that back with me.
Great, thank you. I think it's especially, well, it's true everywhere in our system, but at the community colleges, as you know, there's no plan to do any testing whatsoever. So how they're going to keep statistics on cases, I don't know, but I'd like to know.
Well, the problem is, of course, the traffic in and out of colleges. And I know everyone who comes into the college has to register and do a number of other things, but, the traffic is there. And one of my concerns is, this is a life and death question. It really needs to be addressed.
Thanks.
Okay. Let me close our discussion, at least temporarily, for today. Okay. I know that there was somebody brought up having a more specific discussion with Dr. Levinson at our next meeting, and I certainly can extend an invitation to you to come back. You'll have an occasion to look at all of the questions, some of which are probably repetitions of things that were mentioned today, some of which may be in addition. And we'll have, our next meeting is September the 18th. So okay. That's something that you can sort of count on for your agenda. I can just add that at the university, we are concerned as well by the whole Students First project, in part because of the element of proposed consolidation of back office functions, including, for example, our IT services. Can you only imagine what would be happening if every faculty member at my university, in order to get an issue with Blackboard, our learning management module, cleared up, had to apply to the system office or to some centralized office to get a ticket, to get a response in some sort of priority order based on the whole state, it would have been impossible. So that was an issue which concerned us. And the second issue, of course, which is in the back of the mind of university faculty, is, are we going to be next? You've heard, I think, quite eloquently from a bunch of faculty here from the community colleges who have spent years trying to get the community college system working properly. And the roadblocks they've met, the disrespect they faced, principally from the system office. We're now perhaps in something which might be called a dual power situation. There's an interim executive of the CSCC. There is the system office. You have an interim provost. There's a provost at the system office. It's going to be a complicated situation in terms of who exercises power, who controls what, how do resources get distributed. So I think those are some issues that we can talk about perhaps the next time that we meet.
I appreciate that. And thank you all for your discussion. And, I look at this as really a beginning conversation. And really, I appreciate everyone's candor, respect, and I look forward to much more discussion and action. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. All right. Let us proceed to item 4 on the agenda, which is proposed revival of the TAP committee, follow up to Stephen Marcellinus's request. And I think that Stephen is here with us again. You have it in the package that I sent you today. The main thing is the letter, which requests that the TAP coordinating committee be reestablished. I was surprised to find out that it hadn't met for several years, if my understanding is correct, because that, of course, was one of the main reasons that the merger of the community colleges and the universities was envisaged in the first place to facilitate transfer of students from the community colleges to the university. The whole question of the transfer articulation protocols being first and foremost there. So let me call on Colina to sort of situate what the current situation is, and also Stephen as well.
I think I'll give it right to you, Stephen. This TAP situation is continually confusing to me. So I'll give it to you. And I know that there are many people on FAC, and Lauren's here with lots of experience with this process. So I'll leave it to you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. And thank you, David. And thank you, everybody, for having me at your meeting, allowing me to kind of continue the conversation on this. So just to kind of give you a brief history, my involvement with TAP started when I was at Southern Connecticut State University as a transfer advisor. I was nominated as a student services non-voting member of FERC at the time. And through the years and through the process, most recently, FERC had gone through the discussion of consolidating the Section B portion of the transfer tickets, the TAP degrees. It was then brought to FERC's attention that FERC can make recommendations to make that change, but it would have to go through the TAP Coordinating Council, and actually then to the BOR for approval of that. It was at that time when the search for the current position that I'm in took place. And then as I took over in my new role, my first question was, okay, so how do we get on the agenda? Who's on the TAP Coordinating Council? And that's when Ken Kluchnik kind of gave me the history, a little brief history on it and how it kind of went dormant. So that's really why I'm here. I would like to be compliant with the TAP implementation plan to get this coordinating council back up and running, to have that additional kind of check and balance in the process, and make sure that if we go forward with any changes or whatever direction that TAP goes, and that we're doing it in the right way. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm asking for the membership of the Faculty Advisory Committee. So thank you.
David, would it be possible for me to jump in here?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so Lauren Doninger, I was on the original TAP committee in the summer of 2012, as was Ron and David and Fran. I hope I'm not missing anyone. And I think the problem with the request, and I say this with apologies to my friend and colleague, Steve Marcellinus, is that the goodwill and the good work of TAP has been weaponized, absolutely weaponized. And it makes it very difficult to imagine how to move forward with TAP when it is TAP that has been used to completely gut any form of governance. When TAP was developed in the summer of 2012, it was completely faculty driven. Actually, a mistake that we made was that there weren't any student services people on the original committees, and we realized that was a mistake, which is why there is the roles now for FERC, which is the implementation of TAP. And there have been recently a couple of public and recorded incidents where the history of TAP has been grossly misrepresented. And I'm happy to send links. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. I don't know if that's something there was a testimony to the CTN. It was on CTN. It was the system office gang reporting to the higher ed committee. And Greg Haddad asked about all of the votes of no confidence. And I can give you the timestamp and send it if you'd like. Ken Kluchnik said, and he was on the original TAP committee, this reminds me of what happened with TAP when we had votes of no confidence. And that is simply untrue. There were no votes of no confidence. There was only, I think, one college that didn't vote in favor of moving forward because it was very limited. It was this very specific program. And then at the BOR meeting that's recorded, I think it was May 5th or May 1st, there's a conversation between Merrill Harris and Ken Kluchnik where they talk about how there's no standard for the participation because of all of the community colleges that refused to vote on the different TAP pathways. And that is also a terrible mischaracterization. And I want to be clear that I was the chair at this time. There were colleges that refused to vote on some of the particular transfer ticket degrees because they did not offer the courses. So they sat it out. Not the type of we refuse to participate now because there is no governance. So while I have been fully supportive of TAP, I have grave concerns about in any way supporting what has been weaponized to completely disregard faculty voice in the curriculum of the proposed one college.
Stephen, I can add to that what Lauren said. Lauren and I both served on the Gen Ed consolidation committee. On that committee from the very start, the way you build curriculum is you start with learning outcomes. You start with employers and transfer institutions, find out what they want in a graduate from our programs, and then you build learning outcomes out of that, and then you attach those learning outcomes, you attach courses. Right? That's how you build curriculum. I was told for 2 years by Ken Kluchnik and others that they didn't have time to do that. They didn't have time to work on outcomes. They were just going to work on disciplines and courses, and they were going to build it that way. And so for 2 years, and Lauren knows, every single meeting I said, what about outcomes? What about outcomes? Because I was the chair of the assessment council for the system. And so I kept asking and said, no, we don't need to worry about that. Finally, after a year and a half, Ken said, well, we already have outcomes. I said, what do you mean you already have outcomes? Well, they're the TAP outcomes. We're just going to use the TAP outcomes. I said, well, you created some categories that don't even have outcomes. You know, the humanities one, for example, which isn't even a skill or a competency. And so they said, well, we're gonna do a summit. We'll have everybody come to this summit, and we're gonna change. And I said, besides, they had been telling me for a year and a half that the TAP outcomes weren't any good. And so now, because he was pressed for time to get this done, he said, we're going to use the TAP outcomes, even though he admitted they were terrible. And then he said he was going to have a summit, right? So then there was the summit came, and I guess people worked on these. And now, trust is so broken that it looks to me, when you come and you ask us to reconfigure or put this committee back together, it looks like it's the purpose of it is so that those Gen Ed outcomes that were developed by FERC at this summit can be passed. Okay, so that this Gen Ed that was forced down faculty's throats after we all voted not to vote on it because the process was so broken. Okay, it looks like this is just another design to make this process go forward, even though the process is not including faculty voices. So I think what needs to happen first is the trust needs to be fixed, the process needs to be fixed for the development of curriculum for this new college, and then we can start talking about TAP, because I actually believe in TAP. I mean, I was on that committee in 2012 that Lauren so ably chaired, and Fran was on it, and David Sotloff was on it, and we did a really good job. I thought it was a summer well spent, and I have students who are we now have students in English studies and psychology. Psychology studies is one of our biggest majors, And so I'm really a big fan. But when it's being used to force consolidated curriculum down the throat of faculty who have not had a voice in ensuring that it's done the way we want it to be done, that's a problem. And that needs to be fixed first, I would say.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And that was one of the things I've had conversations with Ken, Lauren. I know we've had conversations with it where it's tough because you're right, with TAP and the consolidation, the lines have gotten very blurry. And that to me is one of the big, most unfortunate things that I think has happened in this process, because TAP has done great things. And my focus is primarily on students and the transfer of their credits and making sure that they proceed to that next step, making sure that they get the best return on their investment possible. That's where I want this kind of conversation, or that's where the focus of my position. When I accepted it, that's where I wanted to take this. And I know that there's still work that has to be done. And trust me, I understand the conversations, and I know the frustrations with how this has led into the consolidation and the use of the terms of the TAP model for the consolidation. So that I truly do, I apologize for, again, for the purposes of me doing my job. I just want to make sure that I'm proceeding in the proper way. I want to make sure that I am getting the help and support of faculty, because without that, I can't produce the strongest outcomes without your support. It's just the way it is, and that's why Lauren and I know each other. I mean, she could tell you my history at Southern. She was there from day one. She literally laughed in my face when I said that this is something that I'll work on, and she said, "Good luck with that." And she was one of my references for the position that I hold now. I mean, and I understand that trust is one of those things that we'll have to build upon. All I'm saying is, as far as my position for TAP, for the students that are currently in these programs, in these degrees, it's just the opportunity to make it better. I hope that you would give me the chance to do it. And I know most of you don't know me. For those around the table that do know me, that's my plea. That's my ask. But I totally understand where you're coming from. So I'll leave it there.
Could I jump in? I've known Steve since when you were actually the head of the legislative internship program. That was the first time I met you back a few years ago.
Way back when.
I don't think, certainly from my perspective, I don't need an apology from you. That's not warranted. There's nothing you've done that should cause you to apologize, although I think we all appreciate that. I certainly trust you, and I think people who know you trust you. It's other people we don't trust. So personally, I could never serve on this coordinating council until that trust is rebuilt. And I don't know how that happens, quite frankly. And I would really advise everybody else on this committee to make the same choice. People can make their own choices, but until that trust is rebuilt, I can't possibly do this myself.
I feel so badly saying this because it's so not personal. I mean, I would give you a kidney if you needed one, Steve. And this is not, the work that was done between Gateway and Southern because of Steve's work. I'm sure that, like, you want metrics, you want numbers, we can show it in the numbers. But completely separate from Steve's incredible work ethic and good intentions, TAP has been weaponized. And for the last 2 years, there has been a lot of discussion about keep TAP. TAP is faculty driven. TAP needs to be separate. Keep working on TAP. And I think now, because we have these on tape, just not true. There weren't votes of no confidence. Just not true. That there should be a wholesale withdrawal from TAP. And it kills me to say that. And I hope that, obviously I don't want students harmed. They're better off in liberal arts and sciences anyway. But I don't see how we separate out how TAP has been weaponized from any ask that has anything to do with TAP.
Okay. So David, I guess I'll leave it up to you and the committee as far as how you would like to proceed. And we could kind of go from there. If there are names that want to move forward to work on the coordinating council, that would be wonderful. If not, you all have my contact information, and I would love to take those steps to kind of regain the trust or build a better working relationship. Because like I said, no matter what the students are in these programs, I think as far as what TAP has done, as far as opening the conversation and highlighting the obstacles that are in the way of transfer students, it has definitely done that. And I want to keep that momentum going, because no matter what we do, what we call it, that's still 80% of students are looking to start community college and transfer on out. So any way that we could work together to do that, I am open for it. And so again, David, I'll leave it to you.
Well, what I could suggest.
Can I just make a comment? This is Mirna Garcia.
Yeah.
I too, Lauren, you remember, was part of that group, but
Yes.
I was representing CCSU as a faculty administrator voted in by our Senate. And one of the things I wanted to mention, I don't want to go into the history, but one of the things I wanted to ask you, Steve, back then, this structure was designed. And hearing all of the comments, I'm wondering is whether or not the structure and the goals of having this TAP council remain the same, given all the changes that occurred since the inception of TAP and the current environment that we're working in, and all the comments. And so I'm wondering, hello?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question, Mirna, because I think that's agenda item number one, is to go back and look at what happened 5 to 6 years ago, and how do we change it? How do we learn from what we just went through? I'm sure everyone in the last 5 to 6 years could identify ways to make the process stronger. So
this is Barbara. Sorry to interrupt, Steve. I've been so impressed with you since I think we were on that A to B program meetings together sometimes a long time ago. In any case, everybody tells me you're a wonderful person, and certainly sounds like it to me. And I think you may have stepped into a rotten job, because instead of being at the community college, you're in the system office, which right now is acting autocratic, disrespectful, and secretive about everything. And from our point of view, and we all can give you a million examples of people trying to work with those people and being treated like dirt. So I just like to know who you report to, and I think it would be better if you could move over into the community college, where you'd be working for a different boss.
I'm a direct report to Ken Kluchnik, so he's my direct supervisor. And you're right, I'm part of the system office.
You have to please him. That's what it amounts to, and that's most unfortunate right now. Sorry. It's not. This again, it's totally not your fault. You wanted to work on improving something, and maybe you can, but we just aren't feeling very good about that particular line of command at the moment.
Could I intervene here, perhaps? I mean, what I'm hearing is that there was good things done by TAP at the beginning, and I know that at CCSU we were interested in what was happening. We had a faculty member who was full-time at the system office and working very consistently and persistently on this, and we got good reports back. and it seems to have had some impact on certain departments, for example, biology and so forth, in terms of students coming in with transfer articulation completed. My own department, philosophy, never had a TAP, so I really can't speak for it on first-hand information. But it seems we have considerable problems with what subsequently happened, and that has to be cleared up. This is the whole question of rebuilding trust. I hear very good things about Steve Marcellinus, and we can certainly invite him to yet another meeting if what we want to do is to defer discussion to a subsequent meeting with the understanding that we want to rebuild that trust and clarify certain issues and problems which came up in the past. I mean, we have really two alternatives. Either we can vote now to approve, if a majority are in favor, and then proceed to elect representatives according to the formula for the 6 people, or we can defer to a later meeting with the understanding that we want to rebuild some further trust and we need some clarification on a number of issues, some of which are historical in nature. So what I would propose is that we do a quick vote on that, and I'm going to open a poll either to vote now and proceed to elect representatives, or defer to a later meeting, rebuild trust, or reject entirely. So I guess that's the third option. And there's a fourth
David,
option, which is simply to abstain.
David, this is Lauren again. I just, to be clear, TAP all by itself on an island, like it, 100%, yes, there should be, yes, we should all be working on it. Yes, the FAC should put the coordinating council together. The problem is that TAP has been weaponized for consolidation. So it's not that there's even a problem with TAP itself in its own structure, in what it is meant to do. The problem is that the way that it has been used. And so I'm not sure that the 3 options for motions, except for abstaining, addresses what the problem is. The problem isn't with TAP. If TAP wasn't being used as the reason that we don't need governance, then this conversation wouldn't even be happening. Of course, we should have a coordinating council.
This is Barbara again. I think I totally support what Lauren said, and that I think right now we can expect, based on past experience, that Ken wants to have this happen as window dressing to cover up the absence of faculty governance and make it look more like faculty somehow approved what's going on without them really having any voice. And if that's the case, I'm really sorry that a really good person's been caught bringing us that request, but I don't trust the person above him or any of those people up there.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that there's nothing that Stephen can do to improve this situation. This is entirely independent of you, of TAP, of anything else. And it has everything to do with the conversation that we had with David Levinson about the eventual governance process, which will take months. And it certainly will not be done in time for, you know, what you're trying to do here this semester. I just want to say how
the only thing I can think of is we could.
I mean, just not just for this, but I mean, there's so many of you who have done such good work that you now have to just sit back and watch fail. And this is just one instance of many such things that we've been doing. We've been watching.
But in terms of Stephen's position, I almost wonder if we should pass a resolution or something, or talk to David Levinson. I think that Stephen's position should be under the community colleges in which we will be developing our curriculum, and it shouldn't be a system office position.
Well,
I just wanted to make a comment, and I was going to make a comment earlier, but I refrained from doing so for future. But one of the things that is really disturbing to me when I hear about the financial crisis that we're in relative to our system is how could we or the system justify all the positions that have been created at the system office? I can't begin to tell you how many committees I serve on where I turn around, I say, oh, you're now a VP or you're now a chief executive officer. With those titles comes a real hefty chunk of change. And so I'm very concerned about everything that Lauren was saying, and all of these positions lend itself to that one purpose and that one purpose only, and that is the one college concept. Because they're duplicating a lot of what is done at the local levels, at the central office. However, many of the positions I know of are not going to have direct contact with students, other than the folks on campus that have the direct contact with students. That's a big concern of mine, especially in light of what was said with David Levinson with regard to the financial constraints that we're under and we're going to be under. That's just my 2 cents with regard, and it has nothing to do with your position, Steve, but it is one of the positions that was developed.
Oh, understood.
Well, it strikes me that we're not in a position or not ready to vote on the proposal. And that this is a matter that I think we need to bring up with David Levinson in our next meeting with him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I propose that we proceed. I mean, there's clearly been, very positive things said about Steve Marcellinus, and positive things said about the TAP, at least how it was originally conceived and operated at the beginning. But there seems to be also a lot of clarification that is needed as to its structural relationship between the Board of Regents, the System Office, and the CSCC to be that need to be clarified in terms of shared governance, in terms of also lines of reporting and so forth. So I guess my suggestion would be that we refrain from a vote today, but that we keep this as a open issue and bring it up again with David Levinson at our next meeting with him and see if we can make some further progress.
This is Lois. Could I ask you what exactly you would bring up with David Levinson about this?
Well, I think the question has been brought up of the line of reporting. I mean, there is a big problem here, and I brought it up in my final comments to David Levinson. There is a system of dual power that is developing, namely between the system office and the CSCC, however that may be organized.
Well,
and I think that needs to be clarified.
But Ken Klusnick reports to system office and David Levinson does not. So I'm not sure how he would resolve that issue.
Well, he does report to the president of the CSCU.
Mm-hmm. TAP in a vacuum, right? TAP is, in the absence of governance, TAP is being used as the illusion of governance. So if there were real governance in place, TAP would not be a threat. So if you were to put a governance structure in place, but that is going to be a huge thing and quite a process of concessions to get faculty to actually accept that this is a significant change in commitment from our leadership. If that governance were to be put in place, TAP would no longer be a threat. I think that is the only thing. So we could talk to him about governance, I suppose, generally.
Talk to whom?
That was actually what I was...
We already did that. He's not going to be able to create this out of... I'm not sure what we're hemming and hawing about here.
Well, we can have a vote.
That's true.
I mean, if what we want to do is have a vote now to approve or not the proposal which is being made before us. I can show that again on the screen. It is, however, to elect 6 persons who would be part of the the TAP Coordinating Council, we can vote yes, no, or abstain on that at this point. If yes, we could proceed at this meeting or the next one to elect representatives. If no, then that issue could be brought up again at a later time when we think it appropriate or suitable. And so I could proceed to do that vote. That makes it a little easier. It's yes.
Should it be
no.
accompanied by another short statement or resolution also voted on by us, depending on how this goes, to explain the reason that, for example, if we were to abstain or to not participate, that it's clear what the reason is.
Why shouldn't that be in the resolution itself?
Yeah.
You
Okay.
have a resolution that you want
Makes
to formulate
sense.
then?
Anyone want to do that? Just a couple of sentences.
Something like without a shared governance process in place, the faculty advisory committee cannot support working on the current whatever this program is called, TAP 2.0 or whatever it is.
All right, I'll take that as a motion. All right, so without a shared governance in place, the FAC cannot proceed to send representatives to the TAP. Would that be a fair statement of your concern? Of your resolution?
Like, given that TAP has often, I want to say, usurped.
I think we leave it as clean as possible.
Okay.
Okay, let me get this ready for a yes, no, or abstain vote. It'll take me just 1 second.
David, who would be voting
Look
on
at what
this?
Lauren has in the chat.
All of the folks who are officially representatives of their campuses, 3 voting from the CSUs, and Polina, correct me correctly, 4 from the community colleges and 2 from Charter Oak.
So people with official voting.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
So I'll put down, should I put down not voting for those people?
That would be
for people
great.
on the phone, if you're voting electronically, I'd like to vote in favor of the resolution. I'm on the phone and
Yes, I'll ask for the phone ones as well. So I'm going to open the poll right
Okay.
now. Without shared government in place, FAC cannot proceed to send representatives to TAP Coordinating Council.
Where are we finding that?
Okay, I'm going to open the poll now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Barbara, can I vote yes so you can get that done?
Yes, I'll add your vote in.
And this is Brian Kaufman. I'm a non-voting member.
Okay,
So
section for not
I cast
voting.
no vote.
Have you abstained from not voting?
Yes.
That's good. Philosophers like that.
Which
We got a whole book on that.
which CSUs can vote?
Central. However, I'm the chair and I'm representing Central, and so I don't have a vote the way WebEx works. So I think under these circumstances, the 3 other universities should vote.
Okay. But ordinarily, who's going to be the alternate this year?
I don't know. For some reason, only 3 of 4 universities voted a given time, and then 5 of 12 community colleges. I've never understood why that's the case, or this seems to be something in the past of how the FAC was set up. So I think it's a question.
Right. So I'm looking at voting members. I'm looking at voting members, and it's Mike from the universities. It's Mike Shea, Dave Blitz, and it was William Lugo. So now it's David Stoloff.
David Stoloff.
Right, you got it, Lois. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll cast my vote
David,
as well.
You will, because traditionally our chair does vote. So if you have to do it orally,
Yeah, I'll do it orally. All right. Is there anybody who wants to vote who hasn't voted yet? So I'm going to close the poll, and the vote would be 7 yes, 0 no, and 1 abstention.
So there should be 10 people voting and only 8 voted?
That's what I have here. 6 and 2 is 8. Yes, that's correct.
Those things like all student vote that will probably have an impact.
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you. Okay, I'm going to close the poll in another minute. So that will be 7-0-1 as the result. And you have another 15 seconds to vote if you are eligible to vote but haven't yet.
We're missing one person.
Yeah, well, that happens. Somebody has abstained from abstaining.
We're actually missing 2. We've only got 8.
Or,
We're missing
or
2.
they've lost contact with us or whatever.
And Patrice and her alternate, neither are here. So we're looking for 9.
Okay, so we have 8, and then in any case, we'll just have to proceed with that. So for Stephen, I guess this would be something of a disappointment, but I do think that there was.
Well, could I make a suggestion about Stephen? I think we should discuss this with David Levinson next month.
Yes.
So that we can educate him about the problem, because it's very important, and because Stephen is supposed to be somehow making this happen, and we've just blocked him. I don't think we want to block TAP or Stephen. We want to figure out a way to go forward with this, along with the governance.
Yeah, I think that'll be clearly indicated in the minutes.
Yeah.
So
can
that's.
I just say,
go ahead.
So this is Steve. Yeah, I don't see it as being blocked. You stated your purpose, your reasoning, and it's fair. I understand. Trust me, this does not come as a surprise to me. But as maybe a homework assignment that you could give to me is moving forward with trying to rebuild some of that trust. How do we go about setting up this governance structure that might alleviate this situation, or might allow us to move forward to, again, get in that process to making sure that these programs are, I guess, in the best place for success for our students. So I think we at least have a next step, which I think is a success, and something I could work on and be willing to work on with whoever would like to assist me with that. So I do appreciate it, and I do appreciate you having the very forthright conversation and upfront conversation with me.
It's Barbara again. I think, Steve, you might want to meet with David Levinson yourself and start to tell him about some of the issues before he comes to our next meeting, so he'll know a little bit about it already.
I can. I guess my conversation or my concern with that is David Levinson is the interim president of the consolidated campus. What I need to work with is the here and now. So it's how do we make these programs work? You know, before consolidation, what if something happens and who knows? So that's the big thing is I need to know about the students that are currently in the programs, they're going to be graduating in the programs and moving on to their next step, and how do we, you know, for the next few years, how do we make it the best for those students as well? So, but you're right, as far as moving forward in the future, that's definitely a conversation that I'll have to start up as well.
Good, thank you. Let's go on now and to the next item on the agenda, which is the search committee for the CSU president. We all know that Mark Pujakian has announced his retirement for the beginning of 2021, for I guess January the 1st. The issue before us is what role we could play or should play, and what sort of criteria we would like to see in the next CSCU president. I did circulate to you, and I'll put it on the screen, the resolution, which is passed at CSU at CPSU at our last emergency or special meeting of the Senate. You have copies of it, but I think it's a very well crafted resolution, and I should add one in which I had absolutely no role. This was done by the steering committee. I'm a member of the steering committee, but I know it was principally done by the president of the CCSU Senate, Fred Latour, who is here as an invited guest. But let's open a discussion now as to what it is we would like to see. Perhaps we can use this resolution as a model, or even approve it.
David, this is Brian Kaufman. The one we're looking at is the CCSU resolution. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And so we could acknowledge this and support it without doing anything else.
We could indeed. So let me read it to you, just because the screen sometimes is a little hard to see. It says, whereas CSU President Marco Jakin has announced his retirement effective January the 1st, 2021, whereas it is crucial for the future of CSU that a highly qualified, competent, and experienced academic be hired to replace him, whereas the decisions made by the Board of Regents and the CSU President have an impact on the lives and career of thousands of dedicated teaching and administrative faculty members and tens of thousands of students, whereas teaching and administrative faculty members who have dedicated decades of their lives to the education of our students are in the best position to assess the qualifications of applicants to the position of CSU President, be it resolved, and here it says that the CCSU Faculty Senate urgently requests that the Board of Regents conduct a national search consistent with principles of equity and inclusion for a new CSU President who shall take office no later than the beginning of the 2021-22 academic year. Be it further resolved that the CCSU Faculty Senate urgently requests that the Board of Regents establish a single search committee to review the credentials and interview candidates and make a recommendation to the board for the position of the CSU President, with more than half of the search committee being members of the teaching and administrative faculty of the constituent institutions of CSU, elected by their peers or by faculty representative bodies. Be it further resolved that the CCSU Faculty Senate asserts that the search for the new CSU President must be conducted according to the principles espoused by AAUP for searches for institutional presidents. In particular, current system-level administrators should have a limited or non-existent role in the search, as they represent the perspective of the outgoing administration. Be it further resolved that the CCSU Faculty Senate asserts that the search committee must establish criteria for the selection of the new CSU President, and that such criteria must include that applicants hold an earned terminal degree in their field and have many years of higher education experience, including at least some years as president of an individual institution of higher education. Nothing in this resolution shall be construed as an endorsement of the current CSU structure by the CCSU Faculty Senate. That was, there were two, this is as approved as amended. There were two amendments to it. Originally, the terminology urgently requests was demand, and some people thought that that was not going to have a positive impact. And so we did modify that to urgently request. And this final little codicil was added. Nothing in this resolution shall be construed as an endorsement of the current CSU structure. That was in discussion, the whole question of the merged board for both the community colleges and the universities, which the CCSU Faculty Senate didn't necessarily approve. So that was passed after quite a bit of discussion, actually, by a vote of 48-0. And there you have it.
Dave, this is Lois. Can I just make one minor edit here, if I could?
Go ahead, please.
It says, be it further resolved that the CCSU Faculty Senate urgently requests that the Board of Regents establish a single search committee to review credentials, et cetera, with more than half of the search committee being members of the teaching and administrative faculty, elected by their peers or by faculty representative bodies. Could that be faculty/administrative representative bodies? Or faculty, staff, a representative body, something along that term.
Yeah, well,
The reason why I'm asking that is that the Norwalk Senate includes both faculty and non-teaching faculty.
Well,
Yeah.
if we support this, we can add that line that we support it with this addition. If
Yes.
we were just
we can modify this as we please. And in fact, you might want to replace the word faculty there by university. I mean, the CCSU Faculty Senate, even though it's called does include, well, there's a faculty senate, but it includes both teaching faculty and administrative faculty.
Oh, okay. See,
So
you don't,
that's context.
the community colleges, we don't use that terminology.
Yes, I understand. So where it says here teaching and administrative faculty, would you want to add and staff?
Teaching, administrative faculty / staff. I mean, it's the same group of people, just a different name.
Yes. Well, do we have a motion to modify this by replacing CCSU Faculty Center, or we could just simply endorse it with any modifications that we want to make?
I'd move to endorse the document and then edit as needed.
I'll second that, Lois.
Okay, I have to get back here to polling.
So, David, who would get to vote on this resolution?
Same thing. It's always the voting members of the FAC. So let me just get this going. The FAC endorses the CCSU resolution on selecting the CSU president. Let me just one more second, if you just have a moment of patience. On searching for the CSU president. Yes. No. Abstain. Okay, so the motion would be the FAC endorses the CCSU resolution on searching for the CSU president. Yes, no, or abstain. So I'm going to open the poll now. And again, it's the same people who will vote again.
David, this is Mike Shea. My screen is frozen and I can't see, but I'll vote yes, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
This is Barbara. I also vote yes.
Yes, and I vote yes as well. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. And the result is 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain. Okay, so we will get back to you, and this is something which obviously Helena and I will be bringing up at the next Board of Regents meeting. We'll be asking for this included on the agenda. We can simply modify the CCSU Senate to simply say the FAC. I think that's implicit in endorsement. The next item on the agenda is the response from the Higher Ed Committee to the listening session on reopening the campuses. And let me see if I can get that up on the screen. I think most people have seen it already.
Is somebody having a conversation in the background somewhere?
Probably. Are you able to see now the document on your screens?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think this was a very good meeting. I think there was at least 12 people who spoke. I spoke. A number of other faculty from CCSU spoke. The president of the CCSU AUP spoke. The president of the 4 CSU universities AUP spoke. The president of the 4 Cs spoke. The president of AUP at UConn spoke. And we were all very clear on the problems involved in the health measures being taken at the various CSU institutions. And so their resume of this, and I was pleased to see that they actually did send a letter to President Ojagian. I haven't gotten a response, but maybe somebody else has. And as you can see, the issues, this is their summary of the issues as they understood it. The temperature taking, increased testing for faculty, staff, and all students, including at the community colleges, pooling of testing to reduce costs on the UConn model, increased options for faculty and staff, virtual teaching, increased flexibility in teaching platforms, and increased ICT support for virtual learning platforms. Now, some of those are actually being, I suspect, met at individual institutions. Clearly, the main one that has not been met is increased testing for faculty, staff, and all students, including at the community colleges. Temperature taking has been clearly rejected by the CSCU and by the various institutions. You can see here that this was signed by, I think, all the members of the committee. Gary Turco and Will Haskell, who are the co-chairs, the House Vice Chair and the Senate co-chair, the Senate ranking member, the House ranking member. So it was bilaterally signed, or bipartisanly signed by members of both the Democrats and the Republicans. And it goes on for, I believe, a further page. That's everybody. So I'll open that for any discussion that we want on this particular question. It seems to me that it was successful, although I don't know that there's been a response from Mark Bakian, and perhaps somebody else might know.
Hi, David. This is Ron. I shared both that and the FAC resolution with our faculty at Naugatuck Valley this past week, and got 2 responses. One from one of our physical therapy assistant program coordinator, who was talking about other issues that she thought were inadequate, such as the poor quality of the masks that were being provided to faculty and other issues. I also had a faculty member send me an email from an adjunct saying that despite the plans that we had, they weren't being implemented properly, so that was an issue. Then I had another faculty member who was on the opposite side of this argument. One of our biology professors said that testing community college students is very, very expensive and irrelevant, considering that an hour after they're tested or 4 hours after they're tested, they could become infected in the general community. And so I promised her that I would share share her comment with you, and so I feel as though I've complied with what I told her I would do, and I also shared with you the other 2 comments I had. Other than that, I haven't heard a word from anybody. So I just wanted you to know where we stood with that at NVCC, because I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I apologize. I had a conflict.
Well, I'll send a note to the chair of the CSU and ask him what response they have to the letter from the Higher Education Committee and report back to you.
Dave, can I just ask is there any kind of legal issues here with the Higher Ed Committee sending that letter recommending those things? Is there any responsibility on this CSCU part to actually implement any of that?
I think they have to respond to the questions.
Okay.
We appreciate the time and effort you have put forth in creating your campus reopening plans. While not comprehensive, the list that follows comprises many of the suggestions we've heard. We respectfully request that you consider implementing these suggestions to help keep students, faculty, and staff safe after reopening college campuses. To assist with the implementation of these recommendations, we request that you seek additional CARES Act funding through the governor's office. We look forward to hearing from you with implementation plans. If you choose not to implement any of these ideas, we'd appreciate hearing the rationale for your decision.
So the key word in there is they should consider doing this. They don't have.
I don't believe the Higher Education Committee can't direct. They have an oversight function, but not a directing function.
Isn't an oversight function imply a directing function?
I don't think legally that it does.
Alrighty, well.
But I think this does definitely put scrutiny and pressure on Ojake and a company to do something, because if they don't, I assume there'll be some follow-up that would be very embarrassing for them.
Yeah, as you know, there was a ceremony held at Central on Wednesday. Governor Lamont was there. Mark Ojakian was there. Number of the commissioners, I think the commissioner for public health and for education were there, about the reopening of schools in the state. And it was broadcast on NBC, and I suspect there's something there from CTN. I don't have anything further to say on that. I only saw part of it. You would have thought that I might have been invited to attend, as I'm a faculty member at the university and a member of the Board of Regents. But I did find out about it and at least watched it. And I have been in communication with Governor Lamont on our concerns, and he has responded at least to acknowledge receipt and consideration. That said, we're in a situation where, as an advisory committee, our powers are fairly limited. We can only apply moral persuasion, and at this point, until we better normalize our relations with the Board of Regents, and perhaps there's some restructuring there that should be done, it's going to be very difficult for us to insist. But I think that, as Francis pointed out, yeah, there is a clear indication of concern, and now we're conducting the experiment. Let's see what happens. We know already that at UConn, they've had to close one of their residences, right, and quarantine all the students there because of an outbreak. And we know that at Western Connecticut State University, they've closed for 2 weeks because of an outbreak in the community at large. What is going to happen elsewhere is something we're going to see in the next several weeks. We'll know more by our next meeting. I can only say, for example, that at CSU, there are so few students on campus because the project for HighFlex, which they had, and I'll skip the details, did not work out how they intended. And well over 90% of the students who were supposed to be part of an on-ground HighFlex experience chose to be in the solely online component. So that of 700 HighFlex courses, which were supposed to be on the campus, fully 25% had 0 students on ground, and most of them had 1, 2, or 3. So there are very few students there. The university has a contract with a company called Medicat for students, faculty, and staff to fill out a self evaluation for symptoms each day that they go onto campus. And I don't know how many are doing that or what are the results. So again, that's the situation at CCSU. We can talk about the situation at other places. But I will ask the chair of the Board of Regents for the response from the president of the CSU or from him to the queries which were sent from the Board of Higher, from the Legislative Committee for Higher Education.
David, if I could just for a moment, just follow up. You made a comment a few minutes ago regarding the fact that we are an advisory committee, which I agree with. It's right in the title. One of our colleagues that's on this committee sent me an email about a month ago and asked me, what is the role of the advisory committee? Now, granted, I've only been on the advisory committee this year, but I went back and looked at the statute, and you shared that. And I'm sure most people would probably call it semantics. However, in section 10A3A, it says there shall be a faculty advisory committee to the Board of Regents for higher education to assist the board in performing its statutory functions. So again, many would probably call it semantics, but if we look in the dictionary, to advise is to offer suggestions about a course of action. To assist is to help someone, or typically doing a share of the work. And an example that is given is a senior academic would assist him in his work. So I find it interesting that the word assist is there in the statute itself, and perhaps even get a legislative comment and ask them to define the word assist. And like I said, I know we're an advisory committee, and I know that we have no authority to usurp the powers of the Board of Regents. However, in the statute itself, it's interesting that they say the role of the FAC is to assist the Board of Regents in their statutory role.
It's always good to have a lawyer around. And I will certainly add that to the presentation I plan to make at the next Board of Regents meeting on the relationship between the board and the FAC.
Thank you.
And our last item on the agenda then is reopening of campuses for fall 2020. I guess there's not much more that we want to say, but we can do a round table if there are particular issues which are coming up at one of the community colleges or one of the universities that we would like to have drawn to the attention of the board and to the members here of the Faculty Advisory Committee.
To follow up on Lois's point about the HVAC filtration, and I know Barbara has this concern too. I've done a little research and become sort of an expert on this. It's kind of interesting, actually. But the Board of Regents guidelines call for filtration for all HVAC to be MERV 8. There's a 20-point scale, and MERV 8 or higher. But actually, the CDC guidelines are MERV 13 or higher. So I think we want that clarified. What sort of filtration is being used in the various buildings on these campuses? Has it been upgraded to that CDC standard, or is it at the lower standard? So again, CDC makes it clear it's a MERV 13 or higher rating on the filtration. Anything lower than that is useless to filter out virus.
Can I, this is Lois, can I just add to that, Fran? MERV 13 is a minimum requirement. Actually, the HVAC group called ASHRAE is suggesting MERV 14, but there's an caveat to that says that if you have an older ventilation system, which I know at Norwalk we do, both of our campuses, college, and if they have, and our ventilation systems don't work well in the best of times, if you put MERV 13 or above filters on them, they're very tight filters. It's hard for airflow to get through them. So if you do not have a ventilation system that can support those MERV 13 filters, you're actually cutting back on the airflow within your system itself. So there are negative impacts to using a MERV 13 filter if it's not fitted into a system that can take it well. Now, I've been told, or we've been told, that supposedly they've had somebody come in and take a look because they've moved to MERV 13 at Norwalk, and that things are just fine and dandy. Well, I'm not so sure I believe that, because our systems are very old, and I want to see the documentation that proves that actually is the case, because I don't trust that at all. So there, it's a double whammy with their MERV 13 or higher is required or recommended. But again, if you have an older ventilation system that can't really work with MERV 13, then you need to do other things to make sure that it works properly. And I'm sure they're not doing that.
Right. And ASHRAE does suggest there are other mitigation steps that can be done if a MERV 13 filter cannot be fitted. So I think we just want a clarification. What actually has been done?
Yeah. I should add that in the discussion we had at CCSU, they have added ultraviolet units to the filtration system for the academic buildings, on the air circulation equipment on the roof, and in where that and in addition in classrooms with smaller portable units. Right? And they brought up this problem that as you move up to higher MERV, you reduce the circulation of air. Obviously, the problem becomes extreme in the situation Lois described. So we are beginning to understand quite in considerable detail what should have been done. I don't think this is over yet. We don't know what is going to happen in the next several weeks, whether there'll be any closures, will there be reopenings, will the state level remain at less than 1% of testing, etc. So that all of these issues, including, which I still consider to be just outrageous, the total lack of testing of anybody at the community colleges. I mean, if we talk about disrespect, that seems to be probably the highest level that I've come across in all of the discussions. I've missed some of the committees that others of you have served on, although I've served on enough of them to know the frustration involved in preordained decisions by folks over at the system office. That said, are there other issues? So ventilation is one, testing is one.
Yeah, I can bring up a couple at Norwalk. I was on campus a couple of weeks ago, and when I walked in the first day, I was in there 3 different days, and the first day I walked in, they had a sign-in sheet, and the security guard asked me to sign in, and there was a pen there that was just sitting there that must have been used by 20 other people that I was supposed to sign in with. And so that was on a Monday. And when I left, I was not asked to sign out, and the security guard sitting behind the desk was not even wearing a mask. So then Tuesday, when I went in, I was not asked to sign in. And when I left again Tuesday, the security guard sitting behind the desk was not wearing a mask. And on Friday, the same exact thing happened. So there's supposed to be sign-ins. I'm not sure exactly what sign-ins are supposed to do. I had questioned that at a management council meeting, and I was told that would kind of do contact tracing, but I'm not sure why or how, since nobody's being tested and they don't know where I go once I'm in the building. And there was also an incident that I know of where in August, we had students coming in for doing science labs for their summer science classes. And they started in the first 2 weeks of August, they were coming in. And one of the individuals got in touch with their instructor the day they were supposed to come in for the lab and said that they had been required to be tested because they are a baseball coach for their son's baseball team. And it turned out that he had tested positive, asymptomatic. And if he had not been tested, he would have shown up for the lab. So I brought that up, and I was told that that wasn't a problem because he would have been wearing a mask.
I don't see David, but I'll just jump in. And this is very, individual to Gateway, but we had some advising hours that were advertised sort of as walk-in, and they probably shouldn't have been advertised as walk-in. So there was some tension with staff not feeling safe in rooms that seemed overcrowded, but I can't get clear on whether or not we were or were not at capacity, because we were, like under the adjusted caps for COVID. And likewise, there are some courses showing up on our schedule that are enrolled at double their cap. And these are on-ground courses, and I also don't know how that's happening, why, or if there's some sense to it, if there's some way that they're managing this, or if these are, individuals sort of flouting the rules. So we'll see. David, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just waiting to see if there are other people.
Yeah, this is Barbara. at Housatonic, we also have people, but they're not wearing masks at all, or wearing them not over their nose, and that's going to happen. I'm very concerned with the secrecy issue about cases, because I don't believe that we have been, as faculty, asked to report any cases to anybody, for one thing, which it would be possible to do that. Our students do tell us a lot if they've caught it. You know, we get an email that they've got it. And I don't think there's any system to collect, that I know of, collect information or tell us when there are cases, as happened with the Gateway thing. Nor have they shared any ideas about when they would close. How many cases would it take, or what would be the decision making? And I'd just like us as a committee not to do anything right now, but to keep in mind that we have quite a good Freedom of Information Act in this state. It's very simple. All you do is request the information, and this can include emails. As we're talking about governance and how things get decided, we could at some point request emails from system office people to each other. Or we just have to keep this in mind, because we might find out a lot that way. But about this transparency about the cases, that I believe, and I wrote to someone who's an expert in this freedom of information, and he said he believes also this ought to be publicly available information, requestable under FOI. So if we come to a point where we feel that we're really being lied to, and we have recourse, maybe.
And I think the question was brought up also of having information on number of cases at any particular institution. I mean, that's definitely something which should be publicly acknowledged.
Definitely. Right.
Okay, David Stoloff, I think you had something?
Little comic relief. Our campus, we all got an email yesterday on our campus that Zoom is not allowed. We can't use Zoom. It came from the system office, where the campus administration said, we don't want you to use Zoom, but if you want to buy your own Zoom account, we won't say anything. So the faculty raised a big issue about they've already started their classes using Zoom, and they want to continue using Zoom, and this is an academic freedom issue. So our provost came out today and said, well, if you're already using Zoom, just be careful and make sure you lock it down when you start the class, and don't let anyone know where you are. Has that happened at other places?
Yes, that announcement went out to everybody.
Yeah.
System.
At Three Rivers, we had a Zoom meeting where they told us not to use Zoom.
Now that's funny.
Yes, I knew it was comic relief. Our university senate always uses Zoom, and the university, the administration is now using YouTube for their meetings, which I can't imagine YouTube is any safer than Zoom, but probably less safe than Zoom.
Well, the email said you can't use anything that isn't owned by the system, so YouTube would be the same problem.
Right, it would be limited to Blackboard and WebEx. And also Microsoft Teams.
Right, Teams.
Which I think has been implemented through Office 365.
Right, but faculty, neither one, they're not as effective as, although WebEx was pretty good today, wasn't it?
WebEx is working fine today. I've been using Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, which is not quite Ultra, but it does allow you to collaborate. But it's basically, it's WebEx or it's Zoom with slightly different controls and its own peculiarities. We could discuss it at some length. There's open source equivalents, which would cost them less money, but of course they've invested in Blackboard. So there's two really components. One are the health and safety measures being taken, and two, what are the pedagogic measures being taken as well. And I guess we're going to just have to continue. If there are situations that arise that you think are really urgent. I think you can, write to Paulina and myself, and we can circulate them around to everybody. So at least we keep up the information flow. So, for example, if at Central, I don't know, a building is contaminated and closed, I can certainly communicate that to everybody else. We can at least circulate information amongst ourselves. We can't conduct meetings by email, but we can circulate information. And we'll look into the question of freedom of information, but at the very least, some publication of cases by institution. That should be obligatory. Are there other matters that you want to bring up in terms of reopening? If not, it's now 3:33. It seems an auspicious moment, unless there's other business that somebody wants to bring up. I think we've done quite a bit today. I think the discussion with David Levinson is just the beginning of a discussion. The discussion with Steve was also quite difficult, I think, but I think we were quite clear. And there are various steps that we have taken for which we want responses. We're interested in having a response from the system office to the Higher Education Committee, a letter to the resolution that we passed at our last meeting, and to now the resolution that we passed on the search for the CSCU president. So that gives us some stuff to do. The next meeting for the Faculty Advisory Committee will be on September 18th, and the board will be meeting on September 17th. So I can report to you all the wonderful things which will no doubt occur at the meeting of the board. But we have a number of issues that we're going to bring up to them. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is that Francis? Okay.
Yes.
Second.
David Stoloff. Those in favor? Just say A.
Yay.
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Those in those opposed and who prefer to stay on WebEx for the rest of the day. I tried that.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Was Lois able to do it? Was Lois able to do attendance?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Just wanted to check. Thanks.
Okay.
Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt getting
No,
off of the
that's
meeting.
all right. There's always one afterthought when a motion to adjourn is called. But I declare the meeting hereby adjourned. So we'll keep in touch by email.
Thank you.
And we'll be meeting again on September the 18th. Thank you all for your attendance. I thought it was a good meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
There's badoop, badoop, badoop as people leave. There's always amusing too.
I always like to stay around and watch people leave.
Me too. But I have a bigger leave. I can just end the meeting.
That's right. Either
I
one of
dance
us
to the
wants-
beeps when they are really plentiful. It's fun.
Yes, it can be just beep, beep. Let's have a few more now. All right.
You might want to stop the recording now that the meeting's over.
Oh shit! Yes, thank you. I shouldn't have said that.
David, now that you've turned it off.
I haven't turned it off yet. Hang on.
It's okay. It doesn't matter. I was joking. I just want to say, I hope you have good luck. I think it's really smart, and I really appreciate the fact that you went back to the legislation. And, I hope we can get to shift the process of what we do that actually follows the guidelines. I mean, it seems to me it'll be hard for them to sort of say you can't do that since it's actually a statute. Thank you for doing that. That was smart and took some time.
Good. All right. I can't stop the video, so I'm just going to have to close the meeting. I don't know, for one reason it seems to have frozen. Thank you, Fred, for reminding me of that. I'm just going to leave the meeting now, and I think that'll stop it.